You walk into a room. Nothing obvious is happening. No one is yelling. No one is crying. No one has said the wrong thing. At first, it almost looks ordinary. Someone is still talking. Someone laughs at the right moment. Someone reaches for their drink, and the conversation keeps moving as if nothing has changed. But you feel it before you understand it. Before you can explain it, something in the room has shifted. Not enough for anyone to point at. Not enough to prove, just enough for your body to pause. Your face stays calm. You may even smile back, but inside, something has already gone quiet and started listening. Maybe it was the way someone answered too quickly. Maybe it was the smile that arrived a second after the words. Maybe it was the silence after a sentence that should have ended lightly, but somehow did not. You do not know yet. You just know your nervous system noticed something before your mind had a name for it. And that is what makes it hard, because everyone else keeps going. They keep talking around it. They keep acting as if the room feels the same. So now you are standing there, half present in the conversation and half listening to the part of the room no one else seems to hear. Someone says, "I'm fine." And maybe they are. Maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe you really are just tired. But something in their voice makes your body hesitate. Not panic, not certainty, just hesitation. That small inner pause that says, there's more here than what is being said. And suddenly, you are alone with a feeling you cannot easily explain. You cannot hand it to anyone. You cannot prove it with evidence. You cannot say, look, this is what I mean. Because what you noticed did not happen in a sentence. It happened between sentences, in the look away, in the forced lightness, in the way the room kept moving while something underneath it stopped. That is the strange part about seeing what others do not. It does not always feel like insight. Sometimes it feels like being trapped inside an awareness you did not choose. You notice the shift, but no one confirms it. You feel the tension, but no one names it. And because no one else reacts, you start wondering if maybe you are the one making it strange. But what if you are not making this up? What if your nervous system learned to notice what others ignore? Because at some point, missing the signs did not feel safe. That is where the danger begins quietly. Not when you see what others miss, but when your body no longer knows how to ignore it. If this already feels familiar, leave one quiet word below. Seen. Because maybe the question is not, why do I notice so much? Maybe the deeper question is, when did noticing become the way I stayed safe? And this is where the pain becomes harder to explain. Because noticing something is already heavy, but being the only person who seems to notice it can make you feel almost unreal. You are sitting there, feeling the tension in the room, while everyone else keeps moving through the conversation, as if nothing has changed. Someone's voice has gone colder. Someone's smile feels thinner. Someone answers a little too quickly, then looks away. And you feel it, but no one else reacts. So you wonder if you should say something. Maybe you ask gently, "Is everything okay?" And suddenly, the room turns toward you, not with curiosity, with discomfort, like you have interrupted something. Everyone had silently agreed not to name. They say, "You're overthinking," or "Nothing happened," or they laugh it off in a way that somehow makes you feel even more alone. And now the strange thing happens. The tension you noticed is still there, but somehow you become the problem for noticing it. So you try to explain, you talk about the tone, the pause, the way the mood changed. But the more you explain, the more fragile your own certainty starts to feel. Because what are you supposed to say? That the room felt different? That someone's smile did not feel like a smile? That your body reacted before there was evidence? It sounds small when you say it out loud, but it did not feel small inside you. And when everyone else moves on so easily, you begin to question yourself. Maybe I did feel it wrong. Maybe I made it bigger than it was. Maybe I am the one bringing tension into places where everyone else is fine. That is how self-doubt begins. Not because your perception disappears, but because nobody confirms it. So eventually, you stop saying what you notice. But you do not stop noticing. You just learn to carry it quietly. You smile when something feels wrong. You nod while a part of you is still listening underneath the conversation. You let people call the room peaceful, while your body is still bracing against something unnamed. And after a while, you become careful with your own awareness. You start treating it like something you have to hide, as if seeing too much is rude, as if sensing tension is an accusation, as if your perception itself needs to apologize for making other people uncomfortable. But maybe you were not reading too much into it. Maybe you were reading what everyone else was trying not to say. And maybe the reason it hurt so much was not because you were wrong. Maybe it hurt because you were alone with something true, in a room full of people pretending not to feel it. And this kind of awareness usually has a history. It does not come from nowhere. People do not become that sensitive to tone, silence, faces, and tiny changes in the air because they simply enjoy analyzing everything. Usually, somewhere earlier, the room taught them to listen. Maybe you grew up in a place where moods changed before anyone explained why. A morning could start normally, a voice could sound calm, someone could be making coffee, or washing dishes, or walking through the hallway. And then, without warning, the atmosphere would shift. Not loudly at first, just enough for your stomach to notice. A cup placed down too hard, a door closed with a little too much force, a silence that lasted longer than it should have, a face that looked calm but made you feel careful. And maybe no one ever said, "I am upset." No one said, "This is not about you." No one helped you understand what was happening. So you started learning another language. Not the language people spoke, the language underneath it. You learned that footsteps could tell you who was coming, that a pause could tell you whether it was safe to speak, that even a quiet room could still be full of warning signs. And without realizing it, you became the child who noticed early enough to lower your voice, early enough to make yourself smaller, early enough to leave the room before the room turned against you. That is not drama. That is adaptation. Some people do not notice everything because they want to. They notice everything because missing something once did not feel safe. And maybe that is why, even now, your body reads the room before you decide how to feel in it. You can be around kind people, safe people, people who have not done anything wrong, and still, something in you checks the emotional temperature first. Not because you distrust everyone, but because your nervous system remembers a time when the surface was not enough. People said they were fine when they were not. They smiled while resentment was underneath. They acted normal right before everything changed. So your body stopped trusting words alone. So your attention learned to look beneath, not because you were broken, not because you were born unable to relax, but because your body was trying to protect you before you had the words to protect yourself. And that is the painful part. The same awareness that once helped you survive can make ordinary rooms feel exhausting now. Because when you learn tension before you learn peace, peace can feel unfamiliar. And unfamiliar does not always feel safe. Maybe your awareness started as protection before it became personality. Maybe you did not learn to read the room because you wanted control. Maybe you learned to read the room because the room once had too much control over you. And this is where seeing too much becomes painful. Not at the moment you notice it, but after, when you are still sitting in the room, trying to act normal, while another part of you is responding to something no one else will touch. The conversation keeps moving. Someone laughs. Someone changes the subject. Someone looks down at their phone. At exactly the moment the air starts to feel heavier. And everyone seems to know how to keep going, except you. Because once you feel the truth underneath the surface, the moment stops being simple. You can still hear the words. You can still follow the conversation. You can still smile at the right time. But some part of you is listening somewhere else. To the pause before the answer. To the way someone says, "Sure," when nothing in their voice sounds sure. To the quiet resentment folded inside politeness. And suddenly, you are not just in the room. You are inside the part of the room everyone else is stepping around. That is the hidden danger. The danger is not seeing what others miss. The danger is being the only one willing to feel it. Because when no one admits what is happening, the person who senses it can start to look like the problem. You ask, "Is everything okay?" And the room tightens around the question. Someone says, "Why are you making it weird?" And just like that, the thing you noticed gets attached to you. You name the tension, and somehow you become the tension. You point toward the discomfort, and people look at you as if you created it by seeing it. That is what hurts. You were not trying to expose anyone. You were not trying to ruin the moment. You were trying to understand why your body did not feel safe inside a room everyone else called fine. But in places where people survive by denial, awareness can feel like a threat. So you learn to hold it in. You feel the shift, but let the conversation continue. You sense the lie, but smile because no one asked for the truth. You notice the sadness, but wait for someone else to say it first. And slowly, your inner world becomes crowded. Not with drama, with unfinished knowing, things you felt but could not prove, things your body understood before your language caught up, things you stopped mentioning because no one wanted to hear them. Sometimes the room lies before anyone in it does. And if your body learned that early, then of course peace feels complicated now. Of course, normal conversations can tire you because maybe you are not reacting to what is being said. Maybe you are reacting to everything that has been carefully left unsaid. And the heaviest part is this: you can see what is happening and still have to act like you do not. So maybe the truth is not that you are dramatic. Maybe the truth is that your nervous system learned to notice what other people were allowed to miss. And for a long time, you may have blamed yourself for that. You may have wished you were easier. Someone who could walk into a room and simply believe the room. Someone who could hear, "I'm fine," and not feel the ache hiding underneath it. Someone who did not need time to recover from things no one else seemed to notice. But maybe the way you noticed was never the problem. Maybe the real pain came after the noticing, because no one taught you what to do with all the things you could feel. No one showed you the difference between seeing something and becoming responsible for it. So you carried tension, as if noticing it meant it had been handed to you. You felt someone's sadness and quietly made space for it. You sensed someone's anger and tried to soften yourself around it. You noticed pain and almost automatically became useful, not because anyone asked, because somewhere along the way, your body learned that noticing meant preparing. Preparing to calm, preparing to explain, preparing to prevent something from getting worse. And over time, seeing more did not make you feel powerful. It made you tired, because the hardest part is not always what you notice. It is what your body believes you must do next. That quiet pressure: if I can see it, I should name it. If I can feel it, I should fix it. If I understand it, I should carry it better than everyone else. But that was never awareness. That was emotional responsibility disguised as perception. And maybe this is what you are allowed to understand now. You are not broken for sensing tension. You may have learned tension before you learned peace. You are not wrong for noticing when words and energy do not match. You may have grown up in rooms where pretending was part of survival, and you are not too sensitive for feeling what others deny. Your body may simply remember what denial used to cost. If this felt personal, leave one quiet word below: aware. And if this helped you understand yourself more deeply, consider subscribing to Cortex Psychology. Because here, we do not call every deep perception overthinking. Sometimes we ask what kind of life taught someone to notice what no one else would name. Maybe you were never too much. Maybe you were just the first person in the room to feel what everyone else was trying not to face. But seeing something does not mean you have to become the emotional witness for every room. A truth can pass through you without becoming something you must carry. A feeling can be real without becoming yours to hold. You do not have to become responsible for every room you can read. The danger was never that you saw too much. The danger was being alone with what you saw. And maybe healing begins when you realize your perception can be true without becoming your prison. You can notice the storm in the room and still allow it to belong to the room.